Okay, today we're going to make gumbo. This is the recipe that I use every time. So I've done a lot of prep beforehand, and that's kind of what you need to do. Everything I'm doing today is double what I would normally do. I have actually 3 medium-sized onions, but you could do a really large one, would also be enough. There's 3 medium-sized onions, and the first thing I do before anything else is go ahead and cut up my onions. And then I just kind of place the towel over the top of them, and I'm sticking it in the freezer, okay? Now the reason I put it in the freezer is because I want my onions to be really cold. I want them to be cold because that's what I use to cool my roux down. Later, when I finish the roux, I need the cold onions to cool the roux down so they don't burn. And so next, I'll go ahead, let me talk about some of the ingredients I have here. So I have 2 large bell peppers cut up. I have 3 pretty large stalks of celery cut up. I have 2, I had to buy frozen okra because they don't have fresh okra right now. It's the wrong time of year. So I have 2 bags of okra, frozen okra, and 2 chickens, and then 2 packages of smoked sausage, whatever flavor you like. But now this is just chicken and sausage gumbo. The thing about gumbo is this, it's mainly a meat. It's all the different meats combined together to make the gumbo. You know, in Louisiana, long time ago when gumbo was thought up, people would decide they want to make gumbo. They get the gumbo pot going, and friends and family would come over and they'd all bring different meats that they had, because meat was a staple thing for them at different times of the year, and they would all throw all the meat in the pot. They would get the roux going and the base going for the gumbo, and then they would throw all the meats in, and then you'd have this gumbo that you put over rice. And so that's the whole point. But I'm gonna do chicken and sausage. You could also do seafood gumbo with all the different seafoods. I've eaten wild game that would have like deer and turkey and everything, you know, duck, anything that people have hunted, killed. So you can do any meats you want in the gumbo, but I'm doing chicken and sausage today. So those are the ingredients that I have, and like I said, this is double what I would normally do. If I was just making this for my house, my home, it would be, I would use half of what I'm telling you, okay? So, all right, but I'm actually taking this gumbo to feed a lot of people, so I'm doubling it. All right, so the first thing we want to do, I've put the onions in the freezer. They're going to be good and chilled and very cold when it comes time for the roux to be done. The next step is I like to brown my sausage. So I'm going to go ahead and I've put about a tablespoon of vegetable oil in the gumbo pot, and I'm going to turn on that burner. And I just want to brown the sausage for a little bit. And if you want to, just, you can add a little bit of the bell pepper in there with it, because it's all going to end up in that pot eventually. Anyway, you know. So we're going to let that kind of brown. Okay, so the sausage is browned, and so I'm going to kind of go ahead and get the sausage and a lot of the ingredients simmering in the broth while I bake the roux. So I'm going to go ahead and dump all the bell peppers in. Okay, and I'm going to dump the celery in. And if there's something you don't like, you don't have to add it to it, right? And then I'm going to add the broth. I need to get the broth in there. Now, this is the broth that's from cooking the chickens. It's the broth that's off the chickens. Okay, so the broth needs to just, the broth needs to cook in with the vegetables and the sausage for now, while just going to kind of simmer it and put it kind of on a medium heat and let it cook with the sausage and the bell peppers and celery and everything while you do the roux. Now, we're going to talk about the roux for just a minute, because the roux is what is your base. That's it's considered like a soup base. But anyway, so we're going to do the roux. You use a cast iron skillet to do it. You use equal amounts of vegetable oil and flour. And you have to put it on a low heat, and you have to stir. It takes a long time to make a roux, and you can't rush it. You can't speed it up. I've seen roux in the grocery store in a jar, which shocks me. There's no way in the world I would ever buy roux from a jar. I'm sure some people have, and if you want to buy it, well, that's your business, but I can't even imagine how they put roux in a jar. But anyway, so you basically have to, and notice I've got my stool by the stove because I'm going to be here a while. I'm going to put my flour, and I'm doing a cup. Normally, if I was just making this for, 4 to 6 people at my house, in my home, I would just do half a cup flour, half a cup of vegetable oil. But like I said, I'm doubling everything. So this is a cup of flour, self-rising, and I put it into a cup of vegetable oil that I have in the cast iron skillet. Now, I'm sure you can make roux in a skillet besides cast iron skillet. I've never seen anybody do it, but you can try. I guess it works, but keep in mind that heating will be different on something that's not cast iron. So you got to think about that. So what I like to do is just kind of, before I turn the heat on to the roux, just stir it in really well, so that the flour and the oil are kind of evenly distributed. I'm making a mess. Before I turn the heat on, I've kind of got it evenly distributed. Now, the roux is meant to be a really dark, rich brown color. If you stop stirring or you walk away from your from the skillet, you're gonna burn it. It's gonna be burned. It's probably not gonna taste very good. If you burn it, you need to throw it away and start over. But you need to do it slowly, and don't get in a hurry. This is not, you're not supposed to get in a hurry when you make a roux. It's a slow process. Okay, so I turn the fire on, I will tell you this too. Now, you can make a roux another way, and it's sort of a cheat, but it's also how I like to make gravy, and I'll show you that as well. But anyway, you can take a skillet, a cast iron skillet, clean, dry, don't put any oil in it, and literally just put the flour in the skillet. That's it, dry, and put it in the oven about 400 degrees for 30 to 45 minutes. You can pull the skillet out and kind of stir it around with a fork, stick it back in. That's gonna get really, really brown. It'll get real dark and brown. In fact, that's how I make gravy when I do hamburger steak. But anyway, that is an option. But this is traditional roux. This is the best way to do it, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and turn on the fire. And as I'm doing the roux, I expect the roux to take me 30, 45 minutes worth of stirring. So as I'm doing the roux, I will give you the time and show you what color it is as I'm going, so you can see the colors change over time. So let me get the fire on. And I'm not gonna put the fire on high. You're gonna burn it if you do. You wanna put it on a medium to low, pretty low. You can do this on an electric stove, of course, but be mindful of you need to be familiar with your stove and the temperatures of it. So you're just gonna stir, stir, stir. That's what's gonna happen. Stir, stir, stir constantly. Okay, this is 5 minutes. This is about 5 minutes in. There's really no color change in the roux. That's pretty normal. This is a very, very slow process. Okay, this is 15 minutes in on the roux. About 15 minutes. Okay, this is 25 minutes in. I'm stirring the roux. 25 minutes. Okay, this is 35 minutes. 35 minutes of stirring. Okay, this is 45 minutes of stirring. 45 minutes. Okay, this is about 55 minutes of stirring. And it's about ready to cool down with the onions. Okay, I've been stirring the roux for about 55 minutes. And it's nice and brown, so I'm gonna go ahead and turn off the heat. Now this is a gas stove, so you're okay kind of to leave it there. However, I always move it off that burner anyway because it's still hot. And the roux is gonna keep, even though I've turned off the fire, notice I have to keep stirring. You really can't stop, so I'm gonna move it off. And get my onions, and my onions are really nice and cold. I took them from the freezer. Now in cast iron, it's gonna keep on cooking because the cast iron holds heat. So it's important to cool it down, cool the roux down. I think I'm gonna take it off the stove to do this. I'll put it over here. Only reason I can put it on my counter is because it's granite. Okay, so anyway, then I'm gonna take the onions that are cold and put them in, and just keep stirring because what you're trying to do is cool that down. And as you're stirring this, I got it all over me. As you're stirring this, it's actually going to keep getting darker. You're going to see it getting darker and darker. But keep stirring because it's still hot and it's still browning. It's still cooking because the cast iron holds so much heat. And it's still getting darker. But it's cooling down enough now that it's probably safe to stop stirring. Okay, this is what the roux looks like after I have cooled it down with the onions, still stirring a little bit. It's safe to stop stirring at this point. It's not going to continue to brown. So this is my roux once it's browned and cooled down with the onions. Okay, so now that we've cooled down the roux and have everything ready, we can start combining the remaining ingredients into the gumbo pot. You can go ahead and turn up the fire a little bit for this part. Because what you're going to want to do is have the gumbo just simmer on a medium heat for a while, a long time. I'm going to go ahead and dump the roux in now that it's ready. And this is your base. This is what you would consider like a soup base. Set that to the side. And we need to add the chickens. Now, the chickens, I'll be honest, I bought rotisserie chickens. They're just easier. They're already done. Then all I have to do is debone them. I'm putting 2 whole chickens in. Now, for if you do the rotisserie chickens and you don't necessarily cook them because they're already cooked and you don't have the broth, you still want broth to make your gumbo. You can use the box broth, you know, or the can. Well, I have some over here, but this is beef. And I mean, you could use beef too. It wouldn't hurt. It'd make it really nice and dark. It'd be a darker color. But you could use broth that you bought, and it would be fine. So I'm putting both chickens in. Okay. And next I am adding the okra. Now, we can talk about the okra for just a minute because some people don't like okra. And that's okay. And I guess if you didn't want to add okra to it, that's your preference. However, technically without okra, it's not really gumbo. Because that's why they call it the gumbo, because the okra gives the kind of thickens up the broth and gives it this thick, kind of gummy texture. So technically it's not gumbo if you don't put the okra in, but if you just don't like it, don't do it. It's okay, but I'm putting okra in. So I'll put the okra in. And that was 2 packages of okra. And you're gonna let this cook for a while. The okra's gonna change the consistency of everything. It's all gonna cook together and the flavors are gonna be really, really good. Now, for seasoning, I just use salt and pepper. I use Tony's, because this is a staple ingredient in Louisiana. So I put Tony's in as well. Any kind of seasoning that you like, you could put garlic in. You could put whole cloves in there. It would actually be really good. You could use whatever seasoning you want to use. Some people add filet to their gumbo, but you don't put it in the pot. You put filet in. You dump your rice in the bowl, and then you put your gumbo over the top of it, and then they sprinkle filet on the top. So you could do filet. You could also add hot sauce to it, Tabasco, something like that. I had some filet. We don't really use it a lot, but I have some, and I'm not sure where I have it. But you could put filet on it. Some people, it kind of changes the taste, and people like it a lot. So I let that cook together. Once it starts boiling, I let that cook, put it down on simmer, and I let it simmer for at least 30 to 45 minutes. Put the lid on. It's good to go. And while that's going, I'd be cooking my rice, because we eat our gumbo over rice. Some people eat it over grits or cheese grits, or, you know, I've heard different people eat it different ways, but we've always eaten it over rice. So that's how you make gumbo. Anytime you have some leftover meats or whatever, you can use the leftover meats and make a pot of gumbo. You know, Thanksgiving everywhere around the world, the next day or the next couple of days after Thanksgiving, people are making turkey salad sandwiches. Well, people in Louisiana are making turkey gumbo. So, and adding other meats and things that they have to it, because that's what gumbo does. You could just combine all those meats and all those flavors together with some more seasonings, and you have, it's sort of like a soup that you eat over rice. So, I hope you enjoy it.